Welcome back, Super Friends. What's the hubbub? Superman has been stronger domestically than overseas. The silver lining is the return profits for domestic are over 30% higher than in China, for example. This means the stronger the domestic hold is, the higher the profit margin. In fact, Superman, as of today, has now surpassed Jurassic World Rebirth domestically as the third highest of year, behind Minecraft as well as Lilo and Stitch. Keep in mind, it has done this in about 4 weeks, and by next week it will likely pass Batman v Superman domestically. This is not copium. This is seeing the positives as well. The better it does domestically, the higher the profit margin it garners. If you look at the worldwide superhero performance, Superman may end up outdoing all 3 Marvel movies as well. What is a cope? When Superman does better in any area, the Snyder writers change to inflation. If you're going to move the bar like that, I'm just going to acknowledge why that looks so silly. Gone with the Wind becomes like a 4.5 billion movie now. You end up saying Man of Steel failed because a movie from 1940, many decades before, did like 4 times the gross when adjusted for inflation. Again, let's be clear, neither Man of Steel or Superman flopped. Their final numbers aren't going to be separated by a lot, so you can't call one a flop without the other being one, unless you are indeed a toxic mutant monkey on a computer. I guess without an active verse, you have time on your hands to be an idiot. Let's take a moment to appreciate, in yet another totally new era, which is current day, Superman 2025 may outgross every Marvel movie this year. That's right. The OG superhero, the dude who literally invented the genre, just soared past the MCU in a time when people were supposedly done with capes. But this isn't just a win, it's a redemption arc, a comeback worthy of a Rocky montage, because a decade ago, Superman was struggling. And part of that downfall wasn't just Marvel being dominant, it was DC tripping over its own cape.
The advent of streaming. Sorry, that doesn't matter either. We're talking about how much money a movie makes while it's in theaters.
Flashback to 2013, that Man of Steel had just landed. It made a respectable $668 million globally, a decent reboot by most standards, but there was a problem. Just 1 month earlier, Iron Man 3 had dropped and raked in $1.2 billion like it was easy money. Superman didn't just get beat. He got steamrolled by a guy with PTSD and a metal suit. And remember, this was during the golden age of superhero hype. No fatigue, no streaming wars, no pandemic box office slumps. If Man of Steel couldn't compete in that environment, the warning signs were already there.
Movies have much shorter theatrical runs today. And then he goes on, and that is true to a degree, but that's the choice of the studios, guys. The studios are the ones who are deciding we're going to take it out of theaters and put it in streaming, when they shouldn't be doing that. If Hollywood wanted to save itself, then they would go back to the old model of you take it out, it's in theaters for 3 to 4 months, and then you have to wait like another 3 or 4 months before you can get it on video, and then maybe do streaming a year later. That they bring on themselves. And if you're going to say that that's a factor, that's totally, you're just not paying attention.
Yes, theaters have struggled with the changes. That's why they've even made smaller seatings with luxury recliners, more reward programs to encourage repeat business, and as always, the push for concessions sales. That buttery popcorn and a drink cost more than the tickets themselves. Yes, Aaron, more days to sell tickets means more ticket sales. Hollywood can't just halt the changing landscape of the world. If Man of Steel had 2 to 3 months worth of more days to sell without streaming immediately taking hold,
ticket prices were cheaper in previous eras. making it easier and more attractive for people to go to the theaters. This is irrelevant because everything is relative, and this is why you do ticket-for-ticket comparisons. Because for its time period when any of these other movies got released, it was still quite a bit of money to go to the theater. It's no different. Everything is relative to that time frame, where society is and how much things cost at that time period. If things were that bad to what they're mentioning here, movie theaters wouldn't even exist. People wouldn't go at all. Okay?
Obviously, it's relevant to admit it will sell more tickets because we are talking 60 or more days to sell them.
Or they think Clayface is going to bring a bunch of people to the theater, or that Supergirl is going to be this massive hit. What are they thinking? What are they thinking?
Supergirl and Clayface are just more notches to the belt, growing the verse gradually. Keep in mind, on Clayface, it could potentially be the highest profitability at a low $40 million budget. No Snyderverse, no problem. Back in the DCEU days, instead of slowing down to build something carefully, Warner Brothers panicked. They saw Marvel printing money with interconnected films and said, you know what'll fix this? Throw Batman at it. Boom. Enter Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice in 2016, the movie equivalent of we need a hit now. No time for character development, no organic story build-up, just a grim, joyless clash between two icons who barely knew each other, tied together by their mums having the same name. Critics roasted it. Audiences were divided. The movie made around $873 million, which sounds good on paper, until you realize it starred Batman and Superman for the first time ever, and still couldn't crack $1 billion. That's like hosting the Super Bowl and not selling out the stadium. Worse than the box office disappointment, though, was the damage it did to Superman himself. He became a moody, misunderstood figure, a reactive character in his own sequel. The heart and soul of the DC universe was sidelined in favor of brooding, angry energy, all to make a quick buck off Batman's popularity. Instead of being the hopeful leader the universe needed, Superman became a symbol of the franchise's identity crisis. They turned the brightest superhero into the dullest, and the DCEU never truly recovered. Sure, there were some hits, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, but the brand was a mess. Continuity was confusing. The tone was inconsistent. And Superman, he basically disappeared. Cameos, CGI lips, and deleted scenes. A legendary character reduced to a background figure, now cut to 2025. After years of collapse, resets, and spin-offs, James Gunn steps in to relaunch the entire DC universe, and his first move, put Superman front and center. Bold choice, risky even, and it paid off big. Superman 2025 did open well, more than any Marvel movie this year, and it did it without leaning on multiverse gimmicks or nostalgia traps. No Michael Keaton, no variant versions, just a clear story, a charismatic Superman, and a fresh start. This wasn't fan service. It was actual service to the character, and audiences responded. What makes this so impressive is that Superman did all this in a much harder box office era than Man of Steel. Theaters are still recovering. Audiences are pickier. Superhero fatigue is real. Marvel is no longer untouchable, but that's exactly why this win matters more. Back in 2013, Superman had every advantage and still lost. In 2025, he had every reason to fail, and instead he soared. The competition is contemporaries and market of today. Let's talk about the numbers and the timing, because when you look closely, Superman isn't just successful, it's outperforming Man of Steel in ways that prove this film could have been $1 billion hit if it had dropped during the superhero golden age of 2013. First off, let's establish the facts. In 2013, Man of Steel came out during a time when superhero movies were on a ridiculous high. Marvel had just dropped The Avengers in 2012, which redefined the genre and made over $1.5 billion. People were hyped for shared universes, origin stories, and epic crossovers. Studios could basically slap a cape on anything and it would pull $600 million minimum. And theaters, they were packed. No streaming competition, no pandemic recovery, no superhero fatigue. Now, Man of Steel took advantage of that climate and still only made $68 million worldwide. Critics were split. Some loved the ambitious scale and action, but others knocked it for being joyless, overly serious, and emotionally flat. The Rotten Tomatoes score was 56%, and audience reception was mixed. It wasn't a disaster, but it didn't exactly ignite the box office the way Warner Brothers had hoped, especially considering it was Superman's big return and a franchise launcher. Fast forward to current day market. The superhero landscape is completely different. We're in a post-Endgame world. Audiences are worn out on multiverse plots, endless cameos, and origin stories that all blur together. Theaters are still recovering. Even Marvel, which once dominated everything, is seeing diminishing returns. We've seen the genre go from exciting to bloated, and now every new superhero movie has to fight for attention. So when Superman drops into this tough, skeptical, oversaturated market and smashes the box office anyway, that tells you something huge. It's just a better film. Critics love it. Early reviews describe it as hopeful, fun, emotional, and finally giving Superman the treatment he deserves. The Rotten Tomatoes score is in the high 80s or 90s. Audience word of mouth is strong. There's no Martha moment, no weird pacing, no tonal confusion. Just a clear, emotionally grounded story about a hero rediscovering what it means to inspire. If Superman had dropped during that Marvel-powered box office boom, with those positive reviews, stronger emotional core, and broader appeal, it easily would have cleared $800 million. Remember, Iron Man 3, a post-Avengers character arc, with mixed reception, made $1.2 billion. The Dark Knight Rises made over $1 billion in 2012. That was the playing field. People were ready to throw money at superhero movies. And unlike Man of Steel, which struggled to connect emotionally and divided critics, Superman is getting universal praise, outside of the mutant Snyder monkey crowd in particular, for capturing the essence of the character. That's the kind of movie that would have ridden the wave of the 2013 genre hype and soared far past what Man of Steel managed. So here's the truth. Superman being better reviewed in a more cynical, competitive, and less forgiving market, and still outperforming its predecessors as the top domestic Superman of all time as a record, proves just how strong this movie is. It's not just a rebound, it's a total reclamation of the Superman brand heading into the DCU. If you give that same quality film the 2013 market conditions, packed theaters, superhero fever, and a public still thrilled by cinematic universes, it's almost guaranteed we'd be talking about a billion Superman movie 12 years ago. The billion maker of the DCEU wasn't Batman or Superman, and it wasn't directed by Snyder. Wan's Aquaman did more than Snyder could with Batman. Ouch. The fact that we're finally seeing DC outpace Marvel for success now, in arguably the toughest time for the genre in over a decade, just makes it that much more impressive. It's a symbolic resurrection. Superman went from being sidelined and mishandled to leading a franchise into a new verse. And most importantly, he's once again the beacon of hope he was always meant to be. So when you hear that Superman just outperformed Marvel. Don't think of it as just a numbers game. Think of it as the final, well-deserved middle finger to the rushed mess that was Batman v Superman. The era of quick cash and confused storytelling is over. Superman is finally flying forward, and this time he's bringing the audience with him. Eyes to the skies, Superman did not flop to the dismay of haters. Look up, not back. Take care of yourselves and others.